There is a moment in every life when something awakens within, a shift, a realization, not in the mind, not in thoughts, but in the very essence of your being. Up until now, you have been moving through life carrying the weight of past regrets and future worries, a constant cycle of resistance, longing, and attachment to things that are, by nature, fleeting. But there is another way, a way that is so simple, so powerful, that once you see it, you can never unsee it. Right now, in this very moment, you have everything you need, not in some distant future when you achieve, acquire, or become something else, but here, now. This moment is life. And yet, how often is it truly lived? The mind races forward, always seeking, always striving. It tells you that fulfillment lies somewhere else. But have you ever noticed, when you reach what you were chasing, the mind does not stop. It moves the goal further ahead, whispering, "Not yet, just a little more." And so the chase continues. What if you could step out of that illusion? What if, instead of being lost in thoughts, you became aware of them? You are not your past. You are not your worries. You are not even the voice in your head that tells you who you are. You are something deeper, something vast, something that cannot be named, yet is always present. Close your eyes for a moment and simply observe. Listen, not to the noise of the world, not to the endless commentary of the mind, but to the stillness underneath it all. It is there, always, unmoving, silent, and yet it holds everything. This is what you have been searching for, yet it has never left you. Life does not happen in some distant future. It is not waiting for you in another place. It is here, this breath, this space. The mind will try to pull you away, to convince you that this moment is not enough. But that is the greatest illusion of all. When you stop resisting, when you fully allow this moment to be as it is, a profound peace arises, not because life has changed, but because your relationship with it has lies. Life is happening now, not in some distant future when everything finally aligns, not in memories of what once was, but in this very moment. And yet, how often do we truly experience it? The mind is always elsewhere, lost in thoughts about the past or anxiously constructing a future that never arrives as expected. There is a deep illusion that life will begin once we reach a certain milestone, once we have the right job, the right relationship, the right circumstances. But have you ever noticed, each time you achieve something you once desired, the mind simply replaces it with another goal, another longing. It is an endless cycle, a treadmill that never stops. What if, instead of chasing the next thing, you became fully present with what is here now? The world around you, the sensation of your breath, the feeling of being alive in this moment. This is life. Yet the mind, conditioned over years of seeking and striving, convinces you that this is not enough. It tells you that peace and happiness are waiting for you somewhere else at some other time, and so life is constantly postponed. But the truth is, the only moment you ever have is now. The past is nothing more than thoughts appearing in the present. The future is only a mental projection, never truly real until it becomes now. Think about the most joyful moments you've ever had. Were you thinking about the past or future in those moments? Or were you simply immersed in the experience, fully present without effort. Happiness, peace, and fulfillment are not things to be pursued. They arise naturally when you stop being lost in thoughts of before and after and start living in the only space where life ever actually happens, this moment. The mind resists this because it thrives on time. It needs a story, a narrative of who you are based on your past experiences and future aspirations. Without these stories, who would you be? This question unsettles the mind, so it constantly seeks to pull you away from presence. But the deeper reality is that you do not need a past or future to exist. You are here, now, and that is enough. Many people spend their entire lives waiting for the right opportunity, waiting for success, waiting for happiness. But what if you stopped waiting? What if you stepped fully into this moment and embraced life as it is, rather than as you think it should be? The idea that something is missing is an illusion created by the mind. Right now, if you let go of every thought about what should or shouldn't be, what remains? A deep, undeniable sense of presence. That is where peace is found. Not in acquiring more, not in controlling the future, but in fully experiencing this moment. Nature offers the perfect example of presence. A tree does not worry about the past or anticipate the future. It simply exists, fully in alignment with life itself. The sun does not struggle to rise, nor does the river hesitate to flow. Everything in nature moves effortlessly in the present. Only the human mind resists, trapped in the belief that fulfillment exists somewhere other than now. But the moment you stop resisting and simply allow yourself to be here, an incredible transformation takes place. The weight of the past and the anxiety of the future fade, and what remains is something deeper, something untouched by time. Presence is not something you achieve, it is something you return to. It is the natural state before the mind's distractions take over. The moment you stop searching, the moment you become fully aware of this breath, this space, this life, everything changes. The voice in your head is not who you are. It speaks constantly, narrating your life, analyzing every situation, judging, labeling, and projecting fears and desires. It replays old memories and imagines future scenarios, often creating stress and worry about things that may never happen. This voice, though familiar, is not your true essence. It is only a collection of thoughts shaped by past experiences, cultural conditioning, and unconscious beliefs. Yet most people live as if this voice is their identity, as if every thought that arises must be true and meaningful. From the moment you wake up, the mind begins its activity. It reminds you of what needs to be done, brings up past mistakes, and anticipates possible problems. It comments on everything, creating a constant stream of noise. Sometimes it praises, sometimes it criticizes, but it never stops. It forms an identity based on personal history, defining who you are by what has happened to you, what you have achieved, and what you lack. But can a stream of thoughts truly define you? If you close your eyes and observe, you will notice that thoughts appear and disappear like passing clouds. They are not permanent, and they are not you. There is something deeper, something that exists beyond thought, a silent awareness that observes everything without judgment. This awareness is constant, unchanged by circumstances, and always present. While thoughts fluctuate, while emotions rise and fall, this awareness remains steady. You have experienced this many times without realizing it. Whenever you are fully immersed in something, watching a sunset, listening to music, feeling the wind against your skin, there is no mental commentary in those moments. There is only presence, only the experience itself. This is the space beyond thought, the space where true peace is found. Most suffering comes from identifying with thoughts. When a negative thought arises, it is taken as truth. When the mind says, "You are not good enough, you will never succeed," or "something bad is going to happen," these are simply mental patterns, not reality. Yet, by believing them, they become powerful, shaping emotions and actions. The more attention is given to these thoughts, the stronger they become, reinforcing the illusion of a limited self. But the moment awareness steps in, the power of thought begins to dissolve. Observing the mind without attaching to it is the key to freedom. Instead of reacting to every thought, there is the possibility of simply watching, as if watching clouds move across the sky. When a thought arises, it can be acknowledged without being followed. It is just a passing occurrence, not an absolute truth. This creates space between awareness and the thought itself, weakening its hold. Over time, thoughts lose their grip, and a sense of stillness takes their place. This realization does not mean thoughts disappear completely. The mind will continue to function, planning, analyzing, and recalling information, but the difference is that it is no longer mistaken for identity. It becomes a tool rather than a master. Instead of being controlled by unconscious thought patterns, there is a conscious choice in which thoughts to engage with and which to let go. When the mind becomes quieter, life becomes clearer. The present moment is experienced without the filter of past conditioning. There is a deep sense of peace, not because circumstances have changed, but because the inner relationship with the mind has shifted without attachment to thoughts. There is freedom from anxiety, from regret, from the endless need to seek something outside of this moment. What remains is presence, an unshakable stillness that has been there all along. The mind is always chasing something. It tells you that happiness will come when you reach a certain point, when you achieve something significant, when your circumstances finally align the way you want. There is always another goal, another milestone, another step to take before you can finally feel at peace. This pattern begins early in life, shaped by the world around you. As a child, you are told to study hard so that one day you can have a good job. Once you get the job, you believe that success and security will bring happiness. When success arrives, the mind quickly shifts its focus, setting a new target, convincing you that something more is still needed. This cycle never ends. The mind finds ways to make the present moment feel incomplete, lacking, not enough. It creates an illusion that fulfillment is just out of reach, that with just a little more effort, a little more time, everything will finally be perfect. But when that moment comes, the feeling of completeness never lasts. There is a brief sense of satisfaction, followed by a new desire, and new chase. This is the pattern that keeps people trapped, always running toward a future that never truly arrives. Everywhere in the world, people are searching. Some seek wealth, believing it will give them freedom. Others chase love, convinced that another person will complete them. Some dedicate their entire lives to personal achievements, thinking that recognition will bring lasting happiness. But no matter what is attained, the same question remains. What's next? The mind refuses to be still, refusing to accept that fulfillment is not found in reaching another goal, but in breaking free from the chase itself. The illusion of fulfillment in external achievements is exposed in moments of stillness, when everything slows down, when there is no immediate goal to chase, an emptiness emerges. This is why so many people feel restless when they are not busy. The silence reveals a truth that the mind does not want to face, that no external condition can ever bring lasting peace. The satisfaction gained from accomplishments fades, and the search begins again. The endless pursuit continues, distracting from the reality that what is being sought has never been outside of this moment. True fulfillment is not something to be found in the future. It is not dependent on reaching a certain level of success or acquiring a particular possession. It is already here, always available, but hidden beneath layers of mental conditioning. The idea that something more is needed is a trick of the mind. The belief that happiness is always one step ahead creates suffering, preventing life from being fully experienced as it is. The moment the search stops, the mind resists. It fears stillness because stillness threatens its control. It thrives on movement, on chasing, on constantly pulling attention toward the next thing. Constantly pulling attention toward the next thing, but in the absence of striving, something profound happens. There is a shift from seeking to being, from running toward a future that never comes, to fully immersing in the reality of now. The realization emerges that nothing was ever missing, that peace was never dependent on external conditions, that the chase itself was the only thing standing in the way of what has always been present. Most people live their lives unconsciously trapped in the patterns of their own minds. Thoughts arise automatically, emotions follow, and reactions happen without awareness. There's little space between an external event and an internal response. A word, a situation, or even a memory can trigger a cascade of emotions, and before there's even a chance to reflect, a reaction has already taken place. This cycle repeats endlessly, creating unnecessary suffering and reinforcing the illusion that life is something that happens to you rather than something you can observe with clarity. The key to freedom is awareness. It is the ability to step back and witness thoughts as they arise instead of immediately identifying with them. It is the ability to notice emotions without being consumed by them. Awareness creates space, and in that space there is a choice. Instead of being pulled in every direction by unconscious thought patterns, there is an opportunity to remain still, to observe, and to respond from a place of clarity rather than conditioned reactivity. Imagine standing in the middle of a busy street, surrounded by traffic moving in every direction. The noise is overwhelming, the movement chaotic. This is what it feels like to be lost in thought. to be completely absorbed in the endless stream of mental activity. But imagine stepping onto the sidewalk and simply watching the cars go by. Suddenly there is no chaos, only observation. The traffic continues, but it no longer pulls you in. The same is true for thoughts. The moment you stop engaging with them, the moment you become aware of them as something separate from yourself, they lose their grip. Awareness is not something to be forced. It is not about controlling thoughts or trying to silence the mind. It is simply noticing. When a thought arises, instead of being swept away by it, there is a moment of recognition. There is a thought. When an emotion surfaces, there is a quiet acknowledgement. There is anger, there is sadness, there is fear. In that acknowledgement, there is distance. The thought or emotion is still there, but it is no longer in control. It is no longer mistaken for identity. The power of awareness lies in its simplicity. No effort is needed, only attention. The mind will try to resist, trying to pull awareness back into unconscious patterns, into habitual reactions. But the more awareness is cultivated, the less power the mind has. Moments of presence become longer, reactions become more conscious, the need to defend, to justify, to prove something to the world begins to fade. Instead of being ruled by the conditioned patterns of the past, there is an ability to meet each moment as it is, without resistance, without unnecessary suffering. Life does not stop presenting challenges, but awareness changes the relationship with those challenges. Instead of being overwhelmed, there is an ability to watch events unfold without being completely entangled in them. Instead of being a prisoner to thoughts, there is the recognition that thoughts are merely passing clouds in the vast sky of awareness. Instead of searching for peace in external circumstances, there is an understanding that peace has always been present, only obscured by identification with the ever-changing movements of the mind. Beyond the noise of the mind, beyond the constant movement of thoughts and emotions, there is something deeper. It is not something that can be grasped or understood through analysis. It cannot be put into words, yet it can be directly experienced. It is the space of stillness, the presence that has always been there, unnoticed, beneath the surface of mental activity. This stillness is not an absence of sound or movement, but a deeper quality of awareness that exists even when everything around is chaotic. The mind is always searching for something to hold on to, something to define, categorize, and control. It resists stillness because stillness cannot be grasped by thought. It is not a concept, not a belief, not something that can be achieved through effort. It is simply there, waiting to be noticed. When attention shifts away from thoughts and toward the space in which those thoughts arise, there is a subtle but profound shift. The sense of identification with the thinking mind weakens, and a deeper awareness emerges. This stillness is present in every moment, but it is most easily noticed in silence. In the space between sounds, in the gap between thoughts, there is something untouched by mental activity. It is not something that needs to be created, but something that has always been there. The moment there is a pause, The moment awareness is no longer absorbed in thought, stillness is revealed. It is not something separate from ordinary experience, but the very foundation of it. When attention is fully present, there is a deep sense of peace. Not because anything external has changed, but because the usual mental commentary has quieted. This peace is not dependent on circumstances. It is not a result of solving problems or achieving goals. It is always available, but it is often overlooked because the mind is too busy searching elsewhere. The habit of seeking prevents the realization that what is being sought is already here. Stillness does not mean the absence of action. Life continues to unfold, situations arise, and challenges present themselves. But when awareness is rooted in stillness, there is no longer unnecessary struggle. Instead of reacting automatically, there is clarity. Instead of being caught in endless mental narratives, there is presence. Even in movement, even in conversation, even in the midst of activity, stillness remains. It is not something that comes and goes, but something that is either noticed or ignored. There are moments when the stillness is naturally felt, when watching a sunset, when listening to music, when walking alone in nature. In these moments, the mind is quiet and there is only experience. Time seems to disappear because attention is fully present. There is no need to name or interpret what is happening. No need to analyze or judge. There is only the direct experience of the moment itself. This is a glimpse of what is always available when the mind stops searching for something else. The more stillness is recognized, the more it naturally arises in daily life. It is not something to force, not something to strive for. It is simply a shift in attention, a noticing of what has always been there. The realization comes not through effort, but through letting go of the constant need to engage with thought. When awareness rests in stillness, there is a profound sense of ease, a quiet joy that does not depend on external conditions. Life is filled with constant movement, change, and unpredictability. The mind resists this, always trying to control, predict, and shape reality to fit its expectations. It clings to ideas of how things should be, forming rigid attachments to specific outcomes. When life does not align with these expectations, suffering arises. The more resistance there is to what is, the greater the inner turmoil. Yet, the moment resistance is dropped, the moment life is accepted as it is, rather than how the mind demands it to be, a profound shift takes place. Resistance manifests in many ways: frustration when things do not go according to plan, anxiety about the future, regret about the past, or a constant need to change circumstances before peace can be felt. It creates an internal struggle, a battle against reality. But reality is not something that can be fought. It simply is. Life continues to move, whether it is welcomed or resisted. Clinging to how things should be only strengthens suffering, while surrendering to how things are opens the door to peace. Acceptance is not the same as resignation. It is not about passively allowing everything to happen without action. It is about seeing things clearly, without distortion, without resistance clouding perception. When something unpleasant happens, the immediate reaction of the mind is often to reject it, to fight against it internally. But this reaction does not change the situation. It only adds unnecessary suffering on top of what is already there. By fully accepting what is, there is an ability to respond rather than react. There is a sense of clarity, a deep knowing that whatever arises is part of the flow of life. Life is not meant to be controlled. The belief that complete control is possible is an illusion created by the mind. No matter how carefully things are planned, unexpected events will occur. No matter how much effort is put into shaping circumstances, change will happen. The more this is resisted, the more exhausting life becomes. But the moment acceptance replaces resistance, there is freedom. There is a lightness that comes with letting go of the constant need to fight against reality. When a storm arrives, trees do not resist the wind, they bend with it. Water does not fight against obstacles, it flows around them. Nature does not struggle against change, it moves in harmony with it. This same principle applies to life. The more there is alignment with the natural flow of existence, the less suffering there is. Struggle arises only when there is an insistence that things should be different than they are. But when there is openness to what is, when there is trust in the unfolding of life, a deep sense of peace emerges. Fear often keeps resistance in place. The mind believes that by resisting, by controlling, by holding on tightly, it is protecting itself. It fears that acceptance means weakness, that letting go means losing something. But in truth, resistance is what keeps suffering alive. It creates tension, stress, and a constant underlying dissatisfaction. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means no longer carrying unnecessary burdens. It means allowing life to be as it is without adding mental resistance to it. The moment acceptance replaces resistance, something shifts internally. There is no longer a need to argue with reality. There is no longer a need to hold on to expectations that create suffering. There is a deep understanding that life is not happening against you, but unfolding exactly as it must. In this understanding, there is a release, a surrender that is not weakness, but immense strength. There is an openness that allows for true peace, not because circumstances are perfect, but because the struggle against them has ended. The search for fulfillment, the endless chase for something more, the identification with thoughts, and the resistance to life as it is, these are the very things that create suffering. The mind constantly seeks, clings, and resists, believing that peace exists somewhere in the future, in achievements, in external circumstances. But true peace is not found in controlling life. It is found in surrendering to it. It is not achieved through striving. It is realized in stillness. The moment awareness shifts away from the endless mental noise and into the present moment, everything changes. Thoughts lose their power, emotions no longer dictate reality, and life is experienced with clarity rather than through the filters of conditioning. The realization arises that happiness was never missing, that fulfillment was never outside, and that freedom was always within reach. By stepping out of the unconscious patterns of the mind, by watching rather than identifying with thoughts, by accepting rather than resisting, a deeper dimension of existence is revealed. This is not a concept, not an idea to be believed, but a direct experience. It is a state of being untouched by external events, a space of awareness beyond fear, beyond lack, beyond the illusion of incompleteness. Nothing needs to be added to become whole. Nothing needs to be achieved to find peace. What is being sought has never been lost. It has only been overlooked. The moment the chase stops, the moment presence is fully embraced, life is no longer a struggle. There is only this moment, and within it, everything that was ever needed has already been found.